Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's regularly scheduled meeting of the Freeport City Council. It is Monday, March 17th at 6 p.m. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I will call this meeting to order and ask Councilman Rosso to lead us in the pledge and the prayer.
Let's pray. Gracious Father, we thank you once again bringing us together to make some important decisions. We ask you to bless this council, the mayor, and city manager, Lord. We ask you to bless everybody under the sound of my voice. We thank you, Lord, for coming in this place. We thank you for the city of Freeport, the county of Brazoria, and the state of Texas. We thank you for the United States of America, Lord. You're such a good God. We ask you to protect us, lead us by your Spirit. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, and you may be seated. Before we start tonight, I would like to remind council that we will have an orderly run meeting. Any disruptions could result in your removal from the meeting. So, with that said, we will move on. First and foremost is always audience participation. First one I have is Mr. Sam Reyna.
Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Sam Reyna, and I reside in 2002 North Avenue G. Councilman Jarvis Davis and Jeff Pena want to terminate City Manager Mr. Lance Petty's contract. In my opinion, it's just a vindictive, arrogant, hostile vendetta. They're not providing enough legal justification for his removal. Where were Davis and Pena when Tim Kelty was city manager and using our general funds as his own piggy bank and misappropriating our tax dollars? They didn't try to get his contract terminated or didn't try hard enough. Mr. Petty was the driving force in terminating Kelty's contract and terminating Casey Roman's employment with the city. Both Kelty and Roman misappropriated hundreds of thousands of dollars from our general fund. Mr. Petty is cleaning up Kelty's mess and doing a good job. His priorities are to eliminate corruption and excessive spending. His goal is to cut unnecessary costs and make every tax dollar count. Mr. Petty reminds me of Gary Beverly. Mr. Beverly once told me that Freeport was sitting on a gold mine. He was referring to the old river. His plans for the river were more of a tourist attraction than building houses. Our city council terminated his contract and Clute hired him immediately. He was the catalyst of the progressive change of Clute. He remained in Clute until his retirement on his terms. I consider myself a good judge of character and believe City Manager Lance Petty is the future of Freeport. So let's don't make the same mistake we made with Mr. Beverly. Mayor, did you watch President Trump's address to Congress March the 3rd? House Speaker Mike Johnson ordered the House Sergeant at Arms to remove Representative Al Green from the chamber because he was being disruptive. Mayor, you have the same power as the House Speaker. If a member of your governing body disrupts a council meeting and repeatedly keeps violating the rules of decorum, have the Sergeant at Arms remove him from your chamber. Also, if a councilman is always late to council meetings, there are possible sanctions for that type of intentional behavior. I'll name a few. Number one, reprimands. A formal verbal or written reprimand from the mayor or council leadership. Number two, fines. A small monetary penalty for each instance of being late. Number three, loss of committee assignments, removed from important council committees. Number four, public censure. A public statement criticizing the councilman's behavior. And number five, remove from office in very severe cases of repeated tardiness. A councilman could face removal from office through a formal process. And they don't take rocket science to figure out who I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marinell Music, you had put on here 4E. Do you want to wait until that time, or would you like to speak about it now? You'll wait. And next we have Mr. Manning Rollerson.
Good afternoon, council.
Good evening.
Number one, I elected Councilman Pena. Doing a damn good job for my ward, whether you like it or not. We elected him to clean up City Hall, and that's his job. Now, if y'all want y'all councilmen to be criminals and gangsters and can't take care of City Hall, don't know where the money going at, no accountability, the same old thing happening over and over again, then y'all keep these people. Because at the end of the day, the city of Freeport has not gradually grown in 57 years a bunch of excuses and pointing the finger. We know who all the characters is. And all you characters gonna have y'all day. Mark my words. You're gonna have your day. This city government is gonna have their day. Number one, where's the accountability for the explosion June the 8th of 2022 for the citizens of Freeport out of this city government? When are you gonna do it? The Japanese government let me know it's your responsibility, Ken Paxton's responsibility, to sue for explosion in this community that affected my children. What y'all sitting up here fussing about, pushing papers at each other, knowing that the city is going downhill. You can't even go in City Hall and show some kind of progressiveness by building City Hall back downtown. No, you're too busy pointing a finger at one another. We need an investigation all the way from 2012, from Troy Brimage administration all the way to the present. And I'm pushing hard for it. Because too many people got away with too many things. And the city is not showing their monies or return on the dollar. All of this here, back and forth, and you got your yahoos back here every time to keep the council meetings like hell, where nobody feels safe. I'm a black man up in here. I'm a black man that comes up in here. And all I see is dysfunction, and a one black man sit there and a vote out of own black man doing Black History Month. Don't know what he voting for. Ain't none of us safe from Freeport, especially when I'm a climate activist fighting about the climate. And y'all supposed to make sure that we're safe, and y'all too busy fighting one another. My children is in danger with this.
Is this Jeff Friedman? Was it Jill? I'm sorry. Jill.
Hi, everybody.
Good
Yeah.
evening.
My name is Jill Friedman. I have property at 203 Cherry Street in Freeport. And I'm here to talk about, it's not on the agenda tonight, but I was notified when I came back from work in July of this year about this international property management code that you all have enacted and put into effect. According to this letter that I got, it says all apartment complexes must comply with the standards on or before January 1st, 2023. This only got here in the late summer of 2024. So there's no way that I could ever possibly comply with something that was done a year before I was notified of it. So this thing is supposed to be for anything over 4 units or more. I have a 4-unit apartment complex and a 5-unit apartment complex. And there's a lot of stuff in here that is like extremely not relevant to a 4-unit or 5-unit apartment complex. This is stuff for like big places, things like the garbage collection notices in there. There's other sections in here about having to have electronic locks or keyless locks. There is no way in hell I'm ever gonna have that on any property of mine. I'm not gonna have people hacking into my tenants' properties or my property. The other objection that I have is that it seems like you guys put notices in the water bills, like anytime you wanna let people know what's happening if you're having a festival or whatever. But you got stuff going in here where I can get a $500 fine for any little discretionary thing in here that, say, a screen is ripped, or I don't have one of those locks on my doors, or any little thing. It's up to the discretion of whoever's going to come and inspect this, that I could get fined $500 a day, which, according to me, is against the Constitution. That's an excessive fine, absolutely. $500 a day fine is excessive. There's no argument about that. As far as the notification, the least you could do, I know you have a list where you know who owns these apartment buildings. The least you could do when there's something that affects us that much, $500 a day fine, that you could put a notice in the water bill like you do for a festival. But no, you didn't do that. You apparently put a notice in the back of the facts that nobody reads. Nobody ever reads the facts, first of all, and certainly not going to read the small print in the back of the newspaper that, you know, my neighbor across the street, he's a Spanish speaking. I know for a fact that those people don't read those little notices in the back of the newspaper. So when you know that you're going to do something that affects people to this major amount, you can make a small effort to let people know that you're going to do this to us. And I really think, now I talked to the code enforcement people, and I thought that there was going to be some discussion about this and making some adjustments to people with small units that, like, a lot of this stuff just doesn't apply. But apparently that didn't happen. It's not going to happen. I don't know, but it needs to happen. And I really think this whole thing needs to be looked at again, because according to this, the purpose of it is to ensure safe, sanitary, suitable living environments and to protect and secure the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Freeport. Well, what the hell difference does it make if I'm telling you that I have a vacancy in my apartment or not? That really has nothing to do with safety, security, the welfare of anybody in this city. To invade my privacy and the privacy of all of my tenants, you really have no business knowing who's in my property. That's my business. That's my tenant's business. And
Ms.
that's it.
Friedman, before you go, can I have you step up here for a minute? You wrote your phone number down, but your pen was skipping a little bit, so I want to get that number so we can reach out to you. I'm gonna turn the mic off so not everybody hears. I did my part, trying to turn the mic off. I received another anonymous letter from not one of our citizens, but one of our employees. It says, "Dear Mayor and Council, I am writing today as a follow-up to
Mayor.
my..."
I wanted to ask legal, the last time this happened, that they were not allowed, and so I wanted to ask that question again. if anonymous letters are supposed to be
Well,
read.
I mean, really, the whole point of requiring somebody to come and make public comments is we know who the person is making the comment. But I mean, I can't, obviously, it's not illegal, but you do what you think is necessary.
Thank you.
It's not illegal, and due to the,
Does it violate the open meetings rules, Mr. Olson?
In what capacity?
In any capacity of the rules of the state law?
No. I mean, everybody has a right. Somebody has, if they were to come up here and refuse to give you their address and their name, they would still have the right to talk.
Yeah.
So in that same light,
No anonymous letters have ever been read before. I just want to make that for record. Thank you.
Dear Mayor and Council, I'm writing today as a follow-up to my previous anonymous letter and to further address concerns regarding retaliation within our community. As I mentioned in my previous communication, the reason for remaining anonymous was to avoid retaliation. During the last City Council meeting, Councilman Pena made a statement saying, "I want to be extra clear that no City Councilman can retaliate against any individual employee or resident." So for that citizen comment, I want to make sure that we lean into that too. And you will never get that from me. However, Councilman Pena's actions contradict his statement. On March 3rd, 2025, he made a Facebook post, which I believe is directed at me, stating, don't give in to Mr. Petty. If you do, there will be a cleaning in-house. From this statement, I infer that my job is now at risk. I would like to clarify that the letter in question was not written by any relative of Mr. Petty, as may have been suggested. It was written by an employee who now faces the real threat of being fired due to Councilman Pena's remarks. I must ask, why is such behavior being allowed? The City of Freeport deserves a council that serves with integrity, transparency, and respect for all of its citizens, employees, and residents. The actions of Councilman Pena do not reflect those values, and it is clear that the current situation is not conducive to a positive or productive environment for our community. The citizens of Freeport, especially those in Ward A, deserve a councilman who represents them with honesty, fairness, and a genuine commitment to the welfare of the community, not one who engages in retaliation and intimidation. Therefore, I once again ask that this council take appropriate actions to remove Councilman Pena from his position due to his actions, which I believe have harmed the community trust and, well, that was my 4 minutes. I don't think I set the clock before I started, but timer did go off, so we're stopping there. All right, moving on. Item number 2 is consent agenda.
Mayor, I have a question here. We received an email this morning, and I want to make sure that the city council is aware or has clarity on the direction we're supposed to be going as it relates to Mr. Petty having retained an attorney that Kathy Azell has also retained, that Covarrubias has also retained. And the question, that's why I called the special meeting.
This
because there's a conflict
is
of
item
interest.
that is in executive session,
I
Councilman.
understand, but we can make a motion to move into executive session early, and I wanted to make that request. Can I make that motion to go into executive session?
You have the right to make that motion.
I'd like to make that motion to get into executive session so that we don't put ourselves in any additional peril. Because right now, there is an adverse relationship, as articulated in the letter by their attorney, Clay Thomas,
You-
that represents Kathy Easel,
You made a motion to move it into
Mr.
executive.
Covarrubias, and Mr. Petty.
Yeah,
it's-
we should not be deliberating about this right
understand. I
right here.
just wanna
So
make sure that
you want to make a motion?
I'm
Make
articulating
your
the reason
motion.
for the motion, though, is that there's pending litigation and we have no direction.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to get into executive session due to the risks that are currently involved with that lawsuit pending, the pending litigation as per the letters.
We have a motion on the table to move to executive session. Is there a second? Is there a second, council? Councilman Pena, your motion fails on a lack of a second.
Thank you.
We will
Just make
move
sure
on
that's for
to
the
the
record.
consent agenda. In the consent agenda, we have two items. 2A, action regarding the minutes of March 3rd, 2025, and action approving the license agreement between the City of Freeport and Cirque de Luxe LLC for March 21st through March 23rd.
Mayor, I'd like to remove 2B from the consent agenda.
Okay, we're going to remove 2B. So, we have 2A, action regarding the minutes of March 3rd, 2025 meeting.
I'll
Council,
make a motion to approve.
we have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any questions or comments regarding the agenda minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Agenda item 2B, action approving the license agreement between the City of Freeport and Cirque de Luxe LLC for the March 21st through March 23rd. Lance, what do you know about this?
Yes, sir. They approached us. They're in Lake Jackson right now, and they approached us wanting to bring their show over to Freeport. We sent everything over to legal and to make sure everything's good. And legal had advised us to bring it to council for the final blessing. And one of the representatives are here tonight to speak if they need to answer any questions.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve council agenda item 2B.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Is there any discussion, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm curious that, in light of a lot of the various Cirque shows that have occurred across the country, I'm just curious, are they properly insured? Has the insurance been vetted and the bonding been vetted? Because I'd hate for us to be in another situation like Covarrubias.
Yes, sir. They have provided all
They
their insurance.
provided a liability policy.
And we have validated that
Yes.
it's true or that it's legit?
It is a state registered carrier, yes.
So here we are, 3/17, and they want to come on here 3/21 in 4 days? That's kind of short notice. I'm just curious that if we pass this, if there's going to be any follow-up due diligence to ensure that, in fact, the policies are in place. And I'm just curious what policy amount is their company bonded at?
They have a 1 million per incident and 2 million general umbrella policy.
Is that standard for the city?
That's, yes. I
Okay.
mean,
In
we've
terms of what
never
we
really
require?
done something like this. We essentially kind of borrowed the policy because they were in Angleton, and I can let Lance talk
Lake
to this
Jackson.
more, but they were, I believe, in Angleton at
Lake Jackson.
Lake Jackson at the time. And so that's why the short notice. And so they had already had a general liability policy they were able to share with us because they were currently doing that show in Lake Jackson.
All right, no further questions.
Council, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Councilman Pena being the nay. Next, we have a presentation by Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott LLP regarding collections.
Good evening. Mr. Darlow is here with Purdue Brandon. He reached out to come give y'all the annual presentation showing collections for the city of Freeport for the past year. So I'll let him and his associate show the presentation. So, Mr. Darlow.
Good evening, good to see everybody.
Good evening.
Let my associate Hayden Bartley give the update, and then I'll be here as well to answer any questions the council may have on what we're doing on your behalf. Be quick, Hayden.
All right. Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here in the city of Freeport. Today we're going to be talking about government receivables owed to the city. First up with delinquent property tax, and second with fine and fees in the court system. Now, the first part of our presentation is going to be on property tax. The county tax office collects roughly 93% of your levy this year for the 2023 taxes. 2024 taxes aren't turned over to us. I want to remind everyone that we get paid as part of a collection fee that gets added to the delinquent property taxes once some letters are mailed out, and then a collection fee gets added. So our services are at no cost to the city. We don't get paid unless we collect. So on the first page, we have the account breakdown chart. This just shows us where all of the accounts are and kind of gives us an overview. For all years, the delinquent taxes are $236,000 roughly. I want to point out a couple of categories. First is going to be action pending. That's going to be where we're making phone calls, we're mailing letters, we're trying to do everything to get in front of the taxpayer and let them know about the delinquency and get them to pay the delinquency. When the letters and phone calls don't work, then we would move that suit into litigation where we would research title, we would file a lawsuit, we would issue citations. This whole time we're trying to get the taxpayers to pay. Eventually, if the taxes still aren't paid, then we will set it for trial and eventually set it for sale. Now, at our last tax sale, we did have a property in the city. The taxes were roughly $3,800. We sold it for $26,000. It had a value of around $103,000. Our next tax sale is going to be on April 1st, and there is also an additional property in the city. In litigation, our largest case, we expect the lender to pay at the end of the month. So that's good. And then the other category I want to speak about is deferrals. So taxpayers are allowed to defer their property taxes if they're an over 65 on their resident homestead or if they have a disability. And so we don't actively work the deferral accounts, but we do monitor that. And if the deferral goes away, then we would take the appropriate action. Next up, I've included a dollar range chart, so you can see that many of the accounts in the 10,000 and up category are either going to be in the deferral or they're going to be in litigation. And we work the roll from the top down, trying to get the most amount of money in the quickest. Next up, we have a tax year chart. So you can see that the majority of taxes are for the 2023 tax year. That's good because the newer the taxes, the easier they are to collect, so we can get money quicker for the city. Next up, I've included some historical data charts, but I'm going to go ahead and skip to the 2022 tax year because that was our last full year. So we were turned over an initial base tax of around $199,000. In between July 1st and June 30th of last year, we were able to collect around 69%. When this report was ran in February, that number jumped up to 93%. For 2023, that was all turned over to us fully in July 1st. We turned over $309,000. So far, we've been able to collect over $173,000. Are there any questions on the tax portion? All right. Next up, fine and fees. So we also have the privilege of doing fine and fee collection for the city. And all years since we've had the contract, we've been turned over roughly $7.6 million turned over to us to collect. We've collected cash payment resolutions of over $2 million, or 26%, and then we've drove in an additional 23,000 people to the court, and the court has either come up with some sort of non-cash resolution, either community service or time served or something along that lines, for a total resolution rate of 86%. We've mailed over 61,000 letters and made over 20,000 phone calls. And y'all are also participating in our case resolution. So we mailed roughly 582 notices out that look like this. We got this back because it was a bad address. And then we also are doing texting for the city. So we've done over 1,200 texts to try to get them to come back to the court. Then we've included some maps, but I'm going to skip to the last map because that shows you everyone that's came through the city of Freeport and gotten a ticket. And so our job is to find them, get them back here, and pay what's owed. So are there any questions on the find and fee portion?
Council, do you have any questions? lot of heads shaking sideways.
All right, thank y'all. If y'all want it, y'all can sign up for our tax sale notices on our website at pbfcm.com, and there's a little thing to sign up at the very bottom of the webpage. So thank y'all.
We appreciate the hard work.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Agenda item 4A, consideration and possible action on approving replat of Lot 4C, Coastal Country. Do I need to open a public meeting?
Public hearing?
Or a,
Yes, yes, I think, let's go ahead and read the title and then open up a public hearing, and then we'll go into action after you close the public hearing.
all right. Agenda item 4A, consideration and possible action on approving replat of Lot 4C, Coastal Country River Estates, a 5-lot subdivision of 18.578 acres, composed of Lot 4C of the Coastal Country River Estates and a 9.289 reserve tract of the Coastal Country River Estates, recorded in the county clerk's file 20240-17236 of the Brazoria County Plat Records, situated in Sterling McNeil League, Abstract 94, City of Freeport, Brazoria County, Texas. That's a mouthful. It is now 6:32, and we're going to close our regular city council meeting and open a public hearing.
Mayor, I do think it would be appropriate for staff to give a recommendation during the hearing. I'm sorry, a brief presentation about the issue.
That's where we're going next. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, council.
Good evening.
So the owner is requesting to replat the property due to a death in the family. The daughter and son-in-law were planning to build on the property a new residential home. Additionally, dividing the remainder of the Stephen Hawkins for other family members and grandchildren. The replat was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board by public hearing on February 25th, and they approved it unanimously. This property is located in the City of Freeport's ETJ.
Council, do you have any questions? Any comments? Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? This is a public hearing.
Shall we, just for the record, it does meet all of our subdivision ordinance regulations.
Yes, sir.
And was
What was that?
approved unanimously.
Yes, sir.
And what was that last, the last thing you said? The city is requesting what?
I'm sorry?
Did you say? The last part you said, the city was requesting, or it's like the last line, I didn't hear.
It's in our ETJ?
Yes.
I mean,
The
what
property
is-
is located in our extraterritorial jurisdiction.
And staff recommends approval.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Well, it's 6:34. We're going to close this public hearing and reconvene, excuse me, in our regular city council meeting. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the replat of Lot 4C.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Councilman Davis. Any discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 4B, consideration and possible action on approving replat of County Road 819 subdivision, an 8-lot subdivision of 8.270 acres out of tracts 63, 64, 65, and 66 of the San Bernard Syndicate subdivision, as recorded in Volume 2, page 135 of the Brazoria County Plat Records in the Thomas B. Bell League, Abstract 41, Brazoria County, Texas. It is now 6:35, and we'll close our regular scheduled council meeting and open a public hearing. Shelby, you want to let us know what's going on with this one?
The owner is requesting to split the property into 8 one-acre lots. The replat was approved through the Planning and Zoning Board for public hearing on February the 25th. The property is located in the city of Freeport's ETJ. It does meet subdivision standards, and staff is recommending approval of the plat.
Council, do you have any questions or comments on this? It's a public hearing. Anyone in the public have any questions or comments on it? Hearing none. At 6:36, we're going to close the public hearing, reconvene into our regular council meeting, and I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the replat of County Road 819.
Motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Council, any discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'm going to remind you, Council, before we leave this evening, we have to sign the replats. Agenda item 4C, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2025-2907 for the appointment of a candidate to fill the vacant position on the charter review that will expire May 31st, 2025. Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir. The Charter Review Commission has a vacancy due to the resignation of Ms. Shonda Marshall. This term expires on May 31st, 2025. The duties of the commission, it shall be the duty of such Charter Review Commission to inquire into the operation of the city government under the charter provisions and determine whether any such provisions require revision. Propose any recommendations it may deem desirable to ensure compliance with the provisions of the charter, and propose, if it deems desirable, amendments to the charter to improve the effective application of said charter to current conditions, and report its findings to the city council. We received one application, Mr. Eric Hayes.
Mayor, I don't have that in the packet. It wasn't included in the packet. So I'd like to make a motion to table this item until we have the packet completed with all the applicants.
We have a motion on the table to table.
Yeah, I'm looking in the packet. It only has the memo and the resolution, but no applicants. And the way we've handled this before is that we've had to have applicants in the packet to be considered.
We have a motion to table. Council, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. I will call, I guess we have to vote on it. I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. All opposed? Nay.
Nay.
What was your vote? Nay? Motion to table fails, 3-2.
Was this advertised?
Yes.
When was the advertising date on that, if you don't mind me asking?
January 23rd.
And when was the resignation submitted?
January 17th.
I'll just say, we keep bouncing around the rules, and I'm not sure why we're doing that this time around again.
Council, I will entertain a motion. The citizens' comments are over. Council, I will entertain a motion. I will make a motion to appoint Eric Hayes Is there a second?
We got a second to ask the question, right? Have a
For
discussion.
discussion, yes, sir.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Council, any discussion?
Yeah, I got one. So this is a charter review. Does he have is it anybody, a family member on there?
Sir,
Does he have a family member on there or something?
do you need Clarissa to talk to legal today about it? It says there was not an issue.
I mean, they're not in charge of appointing the person. Y'all could appoint whoever you feel is fit for that position. If
I
you
know
think that
my
that
only
creates a
question is,
conflict.
if
Yeah,
it's
my understanding is they are related.
I mean, I don't have a problem with but I don't think we should start getting into, having husband and wives on the same thing.
And Mayor and Council, that's really a policy decision for y'all. There's
I
not a
didn't
legal
hear that. What was the
That's
comment?
that's not in the policy or nothing. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, if you have I just don't. Like I said, if what is it? What is she? And that's his wife or a family member?
I'm not sure.
Nobody knows. Well, I mean, because if it's not, it's okay.
I believe that it's a girlfriend. There's
Yes.
heads nodding out in the audience.
Girlfriend, a long-term girlfriend.
Oh.
And I
Well,
kind
I
of
just-
agree with the line of thinking that you're going.
Yeah,
Councilman Davis.
I just don't. I'm sorry. So I got nothing against Mr. Hayes, but I don't want to take that route and start filling up, our boards with wives and husbands or girlfriends and more. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, if she wasn't on there, I would point him to that.
Okay. Council, any other questions or comments on this?
Was any testimony given by Mr. Hayes beyond his application? And for that matter, can I see a copy of it first? Does anybody else have a copy other than you, Jerry?
It was on my online packet.
Yep.
I'm looking at the online packet right now, and it's not in there.
I have a copy of
You have
it.
a copy of it?
Yep.
So did the online copy get revised? Because I just downloaded it here this afternoon about 30 minutes before, just so that I could not have to print it out. And it's not in there. That's why I asked. I don't have a problem with Mr. Hayes. I think he's a strong candidate, number one. But I also see the point here that I don't know if we want households, two persons in the same household being on the same boards. But my first contention is that we're out of procedure by not having this in the public packet. And I always like for anybody that wants to be on any of these boards to be present so that we can hear from them why they want to be on that board. And I don't know if Mr. Hayes had spoke to any of the councilmen regarding his candidacy, and but that's why we have these meetings, so that we can actually have that discussion. But no further questions, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Council, any questions on this side? Comments?
I stated what I felt with Councilman Davis. So.
The good thing is we all have a vote. And with that, I will call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
What do we have for Rosso?
Aye. Motion failed, 2-3.
Can we have it on the next agenda?
I don't know. We have a 3-month.
The next meeting will be April.
I mean, was there a motion made to have this on the agenda at
Yes.
a prior meeting?
No.
This was requested by somebody?
No, by city,
Staff?
by staff.
Yeah, so, I mean, we can put it on, if staff's desire is to fill this position, which I think it is.
We would like to. It ends in May.
So, I mean, if we could get somebody before the end, it'd be nice. So there's nothing precluding you from putting it on next agenda for.
How many meetings are there between now and the deadline, the 25th, right?
There's two.
2 meetings for the charter review? Is anybody on charter review here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Reyna.
Are there any pressing matters that are ongoing right now in charter review?
We're having a meeting Wednesday, and we're going to review.
Mr. Reyna, can you come to the mic, please?
Charter Review has a meeting on Wednesday, the 19th, which is this coming Wednesday, and we're going to discuss Article 3 and 4, and that's all I can say. There's no discussion yet.
So, thank you, sir. All right, we'll try to get some more applicants. City Council agenda item number 4D, discuss and take possible action on agenda rules and guidelines per ordinance 2021-2650, 2022-2657, 2022-2672. Councilman Pena and Councilman Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and table this one here.
We have a motion to table.
Second.
A second. I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. 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 All opposed? This has been tabled. Agenda item 4E, Miss Music.
Mary Now Music. I live at 126 Dutch Lake Court, and I was interested in this particular item on the agenda. Went back and did some looking at meeting minutes, and back in 21 in March, you guys had a salary survey done. It pretty much revealed that the PD, the police department, needed well, they were recommending increases from either from 6% to 23%. Grossly underpaid came up in the minutes, as well as recommendation by City Manager Kelty at the time of 6% across the board for the patrol officers and 6% for all other positions below market value. Also, the question was raised about the last raise that was given to the all the employees prior. That was on October of 2020. There was a question about if that was a COLA increase, and Mr. Kelty said that it was part of COLA and it was part merit increase. It says increases on the police department are based on pay matrix. And he said that the increase was being discussed as a salary adjustment. And Garibay also pointed out that there were in excess of 35,000 calls that year. And for the city of Freeport, that's quite a lot. Traffic stops are not reported in that number. It was also stated that that year that we had lost 20 people in the last 2 years from the police department. Basically, in all the years that I've lived here, the police department here has been known to be a training ground for all the other departments and agencies in the area because of the pay, basically. And I know that because I've had family members that have worked for the police department, and many of the officers that work for the PD now are friends of mine. So basically, y'all made a motion to have a 6% across the board pay rate increase. And then we get to looking at that pay matrix that's been discussed. And I was looking at the 24-25 budget, And each department head clearly makes their own, it puts their own input out there, the achievements for 23-24, the goals and objectives for 24-25, and the major changes. So the police chief put in here, salaries have been adjusted according to the pay matrix for those positions that are on the pay matrix. And salaries have been increased 3% for a cost of living adjustment for those employees who are not, keyword not, at the maximum of the pay scale for their positions. So it's my understanding that nobody on the police department that was eligible for the COLA got the COLA. And you have, like, on that matrix, there's a 20-year cap. So if you have an employee, one of which I know that's been with the department 28 years, they don't get any kind of increase. They don't get a cost of living or nothing. They're just stuck. And I don't really think that's what the city of Freeport's really wanting, because the whole reason behind giving this pay adjustment a few years ago was to get competitive and to retain your officers. And I'm believing that
Miss
that's
Music,
not what y'all really want. So
The 4 minutes is up, I'm sorry.
sorry, but we're for the police department, and y'all need to get somebody to negotiate. And let's talk about it.
Thank you. City Council Agenda Item Number 4E, discuss and take possible action on city staff salaries and bonuses, in particular, the PD and the museum Main Street budgets. Councilman Pena and Councilman Davis.
Well, I'm glad that we're finally talking about this, because it's been since November, December, and here we are 3 or 4 months later, finally trying to speak to this. But, and I appreciate the input by the residents, but I also want to make sure that we have time to meet with the police, so that their association, they've unionized, and making sure that council is present so that we can have that discussion. If we need to make that a workshop to address the inconsistencies that have been brought up by the police department and have become very obviously here, even to residents of the greater Brazoria County that aren't even residents of Freeport. So I just want to make sure that we address this, and I'm just curious.
So is a motion,
I'm not making a motion yet. My question is that what is the City Hall staff doing here proactively or reactively to try to remedy this situation with the police association or the police department and the various staff that either qualify or don't qualify? And I want to get into the weeds of all that. If not tonight, then going forward here, so that we get this resolved, because there are a lot of police officers that do not feel that they're being appreciated, and for that matter, listened to by council. And so I want to make sure that we address that. And I'm curious what measures, Mayor, that either yourself and or the city manager have taken to help remedy this situation.
okay, first off, the way a typical agenda item goes, we read it, and then we read the summary, and then we call a motion. So I will entertain a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to keep the budget as presented, as voted upon in September.
We have a motion on the floor to keep the budget as voted on. Is there a second?
No.
Second, we have a motion by Councilman Matamoros. Second by Councilman Rosso. Now, we can have discussion.
No, you can go. I'm waiting for everybody else to speak.
So we just voted to keep the budget that we got. So it's no way, I mean, it was no way nobody wanted to even sit down at the table to discuss this budget, you know, is it possible that we could, adjust it, or, the rule is the rule is what it is. If it's already been explained, I understand. And, I guess a police officer should know, like, if you bring a charge to a court and you go to court and, you have to present the evidence, or, don't go into, the court with that charge. So if that's what the rules say, okay, well, can we go to the table to change it, since we said it like that, change it for next year? And if that happens, I mean, when the raise comes, you can put it back to they get that raise too. I mean, it sounds like we don't even want to talk about it. There's no way we don't get to discuss it or go to the table and discuss whether it's changeable, or can we go to the table and change it? Because last time it sounds like it was given, approved by the council, even though they were on that. So I could be wrong. I'm asking a question. So if I'm wrong, somebody correct me.
I got a comment, Mayor, and questions.
Well, hold on, let him,
I'm sorry.
let him answer. He don't want to put too much on him. We're going to get one at a time.
Do you have an answer for that, Mr. Petty?
Yes, sir. Of course, everything was presented to council. We had numerous workshops of the budget session as well. Those raises weren't added in that ever came to my desk. Council did approve the budget as it is. This late in your budget year, if you go in and start looking at, and I'm not against giving raises and things like that, but when you start making changes like that, you do have to make cuts in those budgets somewhere to be able to cover those costs. But I do know me and the finance director have already started working on getting budget documents prepared for next year's budget, so we can start a whole lot earlier this year and start having a lot of workshops and things like that. I have met with the police chief numerous times since this came up, and me and her are on a close working relationship, and we're working on things to try to get things resolved for the next budget. Because like I say, this late in the budget cycle, it would be real tough. You'd have to make some serious cuts somewhere else to do it.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for that. I do understand that. But the other question was it done like that the last time they got it? Did council have to approve that during the budget when it first was applied, when it was brought to the council?
Yes, sir.
So that's how it needed to be done this time. And
yes, sir. If there was, they should have brought it to the table during the budget season, for sure.
okay.
Council, any other questions or comments on this?
We got a new budget coming up in September. We got it
Yes, sir, October 1. But we'll start working on the budget here
in
in
September.
April.
Okay,
Yes,
in
sir.
April.
Mhm.
Okay.
I got a question, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't sure if any of the other councilmen, any others, firstly. Is that a yes or a no?
I said yes, sir.
No, I'm asking if anybody else has any comments. I thought,
The floor is yours.
well, I'll have 4 points I want to make. The first point I want to make is, let's be crystal clear about this. The council approved this 4-1, and I don't want any misrepresentation of what I voted against. I did not vote against the police department as some up here and outside in social media try to portray. But I'm going to tell you right now, the reason I voted against it, and I'll say it again like I did back in September, is because there were so many inaccuracies, deliberate inaccuracies, might I say lies,
Council
that made it so that I can basically criticize the fact that I don't agree with this budget, and I can criticize the budget, Jerry.
You can, but
But let me go on.
Agenda item is,
Well, you're stretching the agenda item to be more than what it was originally. But let me go in and say this point, because we still have the second part of this, which is the museum. Let me say this here, is that it's very clear. I want to be very clear that this budget was not clean. That's the first point I want to make, and that's why I voted against it. It was not against the police. The police then came forward to say, hey, it's not clean for their behalf in terms of the bonuses. And so I thought, well, let's at least have a regular conversation about it. Let's have an intelligent, mature, adult conversation about it. We're not even wanting to do that here now. And that leads to my second point, is that the city can make an amendment at any point through the year. We have 7 more months, and we're saying, no, let's kick the can down the road. I could understand if it was 3 months. I could understand it was less than 50% of the year remaining, but we're talking about 7 out of 12. What is that? 50, 60%? I don't know, whatever that fraction comes out to. But I'll just tell you, we can make that amendment. It's not late in the game. Because while you're over here saying, hey, it's late in the game, there are police officers who are underpaid that are not getting the compensation that they deserve. And there are those, as was identified by the citizen comment, that have been here for so many years, and it's obvious that there are so many discrepancies, not only with the budget, but on this particular model. And we got to clean it up. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to kick the can down the road to September, October. We're supposed to fix that as soon as we can, the moment we know things. That's the problem, is that you find out something's broken, like City Hall, and you kick the can down the road, and then it gets even more dilapidated. You kick the can down the road on this, you're going to have a morale problem with the police department, in which, in fact, we already do. So, yeah, we can talk about we're not going to modify the budget tonight, but I'm going to make another agenda request that we specifically talk about the police association's request to discuss the bonus structure. This conversation is not over, my friends. And let me also say, I'm curious of 2 other things. Number one, Mr. Olson, you got up for a minute ago and you spoke to Mr. Petty in his ear, and I'm curious what was said. Can you please share that with the public?
No.
All right, interesting. Is it client-attorney privilege? Because we are the client.
Absolutely, yes.
So
I'll be happy to discuss it with you in executive session.
All right,
It's
just
not
want to be clear.
nefarious.
I just want to be clear on that, because everybody's always asking, what are you guys whispering about up there? And this came up about 2 years ago, and the answer then was not very satisfactory. And I'll share that video on social media, because it's continuing to happen.
can we
The
get
second
back
thing I
to
wanna-
the agenda item, please?
This is all germane, Jerry. It's all germane.
So far.
So let me
I
ask you a
haven't
question
heard
here. I'm curious that when we're talking about this amendment that's so nefarious, that's so draconian, that's so bad for the city, that we can't even make this amendment for our men and women in blue, the guys that are at the front lines. What's that total dollar amount that this budget, this amendment that we're talking about, or this bonus, because we've obviously now had the city manager characterize it as being, oh, it's way too much and we really can't do that, where we're going to get the money from. I want to know what that dollar amount is that's so bad. Do we have a
Well, I
total?
didn't characterize it that way to begin with.
I want to know what the total is. What's the total effect on our budget that the police staff is asking for? Do we have that number? Has anybody made that calculation yet?
No, they haven't presented that to us.
Well, I'm just curious, has the city hall staff made any proactive measures to actually try to figure out what that number might be? And if they haven't, I would request that we do, so that by the time we have this on the agenda for the next meeting, that we can actually have an intelligent conversation about it. But I would also like to make sure that we also have an opportunity, as Councilman Davis had said, to sit down and discuss this, because this is a very serious matter. And that's all I have
Mayor, I
on
have a
that
comment.
particular topic. But I have the second part about the museum I want to make sure we talk about.
Mr. Matamoros.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I've done some research on my own. I need some clarification from Mr. Petty. Mr. Petty, we don't give bonuses, correct, as a city? Because I've heard it state that we're giving bonuses.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Can't.
that's what I was curious, I believe that. So I've been looking at the information surrounding cities. Angleton, they're on a STEP plan. Clute is on a cost of living only plan. Richwood is on a cost of living annually, and they get a merit every other year. Still looking forward, Lake Jackson's and other surrounding cities. So I don't think we're too far out. I do want to speak about this on the next budget and see what we can do. But anybody stating that we're against the police because of this is lying. And if there's any type of retaliation, that's another lie. That we don't back the blue, that's a lie. Because every single time they have a request, it's approved. And so I do know that their issues have come up because of some other problems that were created by a council person. But yeah, I think we should take a vote on this and move on to executive session.
Jerry, I have a response to that, and I definitely want to make sure that we do talk about Main Street because that is a budgetary item that was on the agenda. And I just want to say that, as was stated here by the citizen comment, I'm not interested in comparing ourselves to the rest of the county, especially when it's common knowledge that we end up being a training ground. We got to make sure we do take care of our police officers, our first responders. But let me also be clear to state this other problem here. The comment was, hey, if you guys just came to us and mentioned it and requested it, we would have approved it. Don't forget that just 3 meetings ago, we had the very conversation that was actually ended up reposted on social media. And that is, if you don't recognize why the police department and the city staff are not calling you and asking you for questions, you need to have a self-awareness check on that and ask, why is that happening? And if you don't have a good answer, pick up the phone and ask for a meeting so that all parties can be present. That's the leadership that the police department is looking for. And so I'm asking you, Jerry, we need to get that meeting put together, and we had it informally before. We could still try to, we tried to create it informally, but when I basically had asked that we can have that meeting, that's when Mr. Petty lawyered up. And that's why we have some other matters.
Now you are
relevant.
getting.
The action and reaction,
You
the cause and effect. And I want to make sure people understand the full picture of this matter. Because now we have other legal issues because of this. If we would have nipped this in the bud with the police, we would have been okay.
I'm going to call the vote.
Well, there's no vote.
Yes, there is.
What's the vote?
The motion on the table was to leave the agenda as it is. The budget as it is. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries 3-2.
I'll make another motion, and that is that we have to make sure that the Main Street director position, which I understand has been vacated, that the person that had that position, which is Mr. Wade from the museum directorship, that his salary is commensurate with his return, or I should say his relinquishing of those responsibilities, with which last year when he took the position on top of his museum director position, he got a raise.
That has been done, Councilman.
And so that's the question I have, and that's my motion.
That has been done.
Yeah.
It has been taken care of.
Now, I'm curious though, was the pay effective after the resignation was submitted? Was the pay change made effective after, or when was it made effective, the change? I'm hoping that it would be naturally, right, after the resignation, that the next pay period would not include that additional salary, is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, good.
He was on the higher pay grade for 3 days, and I took those away.
All right, thank you. That's what I needed to know. Because it was brought to my attention that we have directors that are resigning, and I want to make sure that the council can be made aware of all directors.
That agenda item is closed.
Well, I'm asking that we have better communication with council about any director positions moving up or down or in or out. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. It is now 7:10. We are closing the regular session of this city council meeting and opening executive session. Executive session regarding discuss and take possible action on demand letters to responsible parties for recovery of $345,000. Discuss and take possible action regarding Lance Petty's retention of personal legal counsel.
Mayor, are we going to have the
We are
retention in
we are-
executive session or an open session?
I'm sorry?
Are we going to have his attorney, is his attorney present?
When we get to the second part of this, Mr. Petty won't even be in here.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure of. Thank you.